Ever wondered why men are often expected to foot the bill on a date? The roots of this practice stretch back to ancient times, and over the centuries, societal norms, gender roles, and expectations have continued to shape dating customs. Let's take a trip back in time to the days of ancient Greece and Rome. Back then, men were seen as the providers, the ones responsible for the well-being of their families, including their wives and children. This gender role was deeply ingrained in society, and as a result, men were also expected to carry the financial burden when it came to courting potential mates. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, the concept of chivalry began to take hold. This was a code of conduct for knights, and it laid out how a gentleman should behave towards a lady. As part of this code, men were expected to protect and provide for women, and yes, that included picking up the tab when wooing a lady. The idea of men as providers didn't stop there, though. In the early 20th century, during the time of the suffragettes and the fight for women's rights, men were still largely seen as the breadwinners. Women, on the other hand, were often financially dependent on men. In this context, it's not hard to see why men paying for dates became the norm. Fast forward to the present day, and these historical norms have left a lasting legacy. Despite the progress we've made towards gender equality, many of these old traditions and expectations still persist. Men are often still expected to pay on a date, even if the woman they're dating is financially independent. So, history has played a significant role in shaping our dating norms, but does it still apply today? Let's delve into the arguments supporting the idea that men should pay on a date. Our first stop on this journey is the realm of tradition. Since time immemorial, men have been expected to be the providers, a role deeply ingrained in societies worldwide. Even in the city-states of ancient Greece, men were expected to provide for their families, and this expectation extended to the realm of courtship and dating. The act of a man paying for a date can be seen as a modern extension of this age-old expectation. Next, let's explore the concept of chivalry. The knights of yore, both in the tales of King Arthur and the real-world medieval Europe, were bound by a code of chivalry. This code emphasized virtues such as bravery, courtesy, honor, and gallantry towards women. Paying for a date can be seen as a contemporary expression of this chivalrous behavior. It's a gesture that says, "I respect you and want to take care of you," in a world that often forgets the importance of such sentiments. Lastly, we cannot ignore the elephant in the room, the wage gap. Despite strides towards equality, men, on average, still earn more than women. It's a reality that can be traced back to the Roman Empire, where men were the primary earners, while women generally had limited economic opportunities. While it's not a perfect world and we're still fighting for equal pay, the wage gap is a factor that contributes to the expectation that men should foot the bill. However, these arguments, while compelling, are not without their critics. Tradition can be seen as an outdated concept that doesn't always align with modern values. Chivalry, while noble, can be interpreted as patronizing or paternalistic. And the wage gap, while a reality, is a societal issue that we should strive to eliminate, not perpetuate through dating customs. These arguments hold weight, but are they enough to solidify the notion that men should always pay on dates? On the other side of the coin, we have arguments against the notion that men should always pay on a date. Just as the ancient Greeks and Romans evolved over time, so too have our societal norms, particularly those regarding gender roles. The 21st century has seen a significant shift towards gender equality. This shift has impacted every facet of life, including dating norms. In ancient Greece, it was customary for the man to pay for the date, a practice rooted in the belief that men were the providers, the breadwinners. But today, we're living in a different era. Women are equally capable of being providers, of being breadwinners. They're leading nations, heading corporations, and breaking barriers in every field imaginable. So, shouldn't this newfound equality extend to dating as well? The concept of splitting the bill, or going Dutch as it's often called, has gained significant traction in recent years. This practice not only acknowledges the financial independence of both parties, but also levels the playing field, promoting a sense of equality. It's a gesture that says, "I value your contribution just as much as mine." Moreover, the expectation that men should always pay can create undue pressure and even foster resentment over time. A relationship should be a partnership, a shared venture. Shouldn't this partnership start from the very first date? Let's also consider the financial aspect. Dating can be an expensive endeavor, By sharing the cost, we're promoting a more sustainable approach to dating, one that doesn't put undue strain on either party. Finally, we mustn't overlook the element of choice. Some women may prefer to pay for their share, a preference that should be respected. After all, isn't respect one of the cornerstones of any healthy relationship? These arguments present a compelling case for a more balanced approach to who pays on dates. But what's the middle ground? The question remains, who should pay on a date? As we journey through the annals of history, we find that the answer isn't as clear-cut as it once seemed. The ancient Greeks, for instance, had a different take on this. They valued open dialogue and mutual understanding in all aspects of life, including courtship. So, in the spirit of the Greeks, let's delve into this further. In any relationship, communication is key. It's about understanding each other's expectations and preferences. Some might feel strongly that the man should pay, harking back to historic notions of chivalry and masculinity. Others might feel that such traditions are outdated, arguing instead for a more egalitarian approach. And that's where striking a balance comes in. The idea of taking turns or splitting the bill isn't as radical as it may seem. In fact, it's a practice that's been embraced by many modern couples. It's about finding a middle ground that both parties are comfortable with. Imagine a Roman amphitheater where two gladiators are locked in combat. The crowd roars, the tension is palpable. But instead of a fight to the death, imagine these gladiators are working together, each contributing their strength and skill to a common goal. This is what a balanced relationship can look like. Each person brings their own strengths to the table, and together, they form a formidable team. Now, consider a date. Instead of seeing it as a battleground, see it as an opportunity for collaboration. Perhaps one person pays for dinner and the other pays for the movie tickets. Or, if both parties are comfortable with it, splitting the bill down the middle can be a fair and straightforward solution. But remember, there's no universal rule. It's about reaching an agreement that respects both parties' preferences and financial capabilities. Just as in the grand arenas of Rome, it's not about who wins or loses, but how the game is played. In the end, perhaps the answer isn't a one-size-fits-all, but rather a flexible approach that respects both parties' preferences and financial capabilities. So, should men always pay on a date? As we've journeyed through the corridors of time, we've seen the evolution of dating practices, from the chivalrous gestures of Greek and Roman times to the present-day quandaries. We've weighed the reasons for and against men footing the bill, and it's clear that there's no one-size-fits-all answer. The key to navigating this dilemma lies not in rigid rules or traditional norms, but in open dialogue and mutual respect. It's about understanding each other's perspectives and finding a middle ground that feels fair and comfortable to both parties involved. It's about flexibility, recognizing that every date, every relationship is unique and should be